Hello and welcome you crazy people, my name is Jay and the question I'm asking today is Warhammer Underworlds a very underappreciated game? So not underrated, because I'll tell you why for now. Whenever I mention Warhammer Underworlds, there's always somebody in the comments, and I won't name names, there's quite a few people really, and they're all like, Warhammer Underworlds is a fantastic game, it's Games Workshop's best competitive game, and I've just been like, I'm not going to play it. So I think it is sort of not underrated, because I think a lot of people rate it very highly, but I do think it might be slightly underappreciated. And I'll tell you why, and that's what we're talking about. If you like this video, like and subscribe. But so how did this all start? Well, there is a game, a computer game, a video game, as well as the tabletop game of Warhammer Underworlds, which I'm already assuming you know about. But there is a video game of Warhammer Underworlds Online, is what it's actually called, and it's having currently this weekend, as in the weekend of the 5th to the 6th, it's having a free weekend on Steam. So that just means you can download it, play it for free, and it's also on sale for like 14 quid, right? I don't get any money if you buy it, so, you know, don't. No, I'm just kidding. There's no affiliate. I'm not affiliated with it or anything like that. So I streamed it last night, and the actual, if you want to check the channel, you can actually see the stream, because I streamed it to this channel, and it's there, and you can see me. I literally never played before. I go through the tutorial and I do like 3 or 4 online games, and if I'm honest, I really liked it. I thought it was fantastic. The rules are just good. There's a lot of nuance to it. I think it doesn't help that I was playing it wrong for most of the time. They were literally my first games, and I never even bothered with the tutorial that much. But there's a lot of depth there, in terms of I'll give you one example that really summed it up. It was the last game I played, and basically, spoilers for the stream if you go watch it, but I had a card that said if I hold this objective, I get one glory point, right? So I moved my guy out of my enemy's area and into my objective to hold it, which inadvertently at the end of the phase, he had a card that said if there's no enemies in his deployment or his area, whatever you want to call it, then he'll get 3 glory points. So I basically gave him, because it was literally the last action of the turn, I gave him 3 glory points for whilst I was trying to hold 1. And it was like, now maybe if I would have known or thought he could have had that card, maybe I wouldn't have done that move. But yeah, it just sort of was like, I can imagine when you know the game in and out, inside out, that those kind of decisions become like super important and super relevant. And it's quite cool anyway. So you're like, okay, I'm going to move here and attack here, or maybe actually I'm going to attack first before I charge, because once I charge I can't then attack. So it's a good game. This isn't a review. I'm not trying to review either the video game or Warhammer Underworlds itself. I'm just trying to say it had a lot of cool rules, a lot of interesting strategic and tactical decisions to be made, and ultimately I think it was a really fun game, and I can understand why people say it's Games Workshop's best competitive game, and quite frankly I would be inclined to agree at that point. Obviously I've not played it in depth enough, and so I do think that there's that. But I do think it's underappreciated in sense of when Warcry came out, I made a video talking about how I'm not sure Warcry and Shadespire or Warhammer Underworld, could physically exist together, because I think some people will want to play just the one AOS skirmish game, and I thought Warcry was sort of they were sort of fighting against each other, even though the rules are completely different. I thought that was going to be the case, and I still think that is the case. And I think Warcry is also a good rule set from Games Workshop. It's a little bit of a shame that 2 of their best rule sets are both sort of in the same universe, and whilst they're not doing the same thing, I do feel like they might inadvertently overlap a little bit. So I think the game is good, right? But let's just to prove that it's slightly underappreciated, shall we? So let's show you. So there's a free weekend right now, and the numbers, this is on Steam, so obviously this is for the video game, and the free weekend has bumped up the peak for the last 30 days. Basically you can see there's an increase because the peak players have jumped up. When the game came out earlier this year, it also had a boom, but it did okay, but it didn't do smashingly well. Now if we compare that to say something like Blood Bowl 2, which has been out now for 5 years, and yes, is getting a 3rd edition. Blood Bowl 2's peak players in the last 30 days is over 1,000. In the last 24 hours, basically nearly 1,000. And when that actually did come out, I think all the way back 2015, yeah, like it had a peak players of like 6,000 players. So now obviously Blood Bowl's been around a lot longer and stuff like that. And you can see in the interest here on Google Trends, this is the United States for the last 12 months. There's no real contest. Blood Bowl is very much well up there, whereas Thingy is not. So, yeah, I think there's evidence that it suggests that Warhammer Underworlds is not exactly the most strongly appreciated game in Games Workshop's arsenal, shall we say. And it all comes down to this one point for me. And the reason I dismissed it so early on was the deck building. So during the game, you have cards that you can play as like ploys. So you can do like a ploy which doesn't require any glory points. Then you can do upgrades which does require a glory point. And then you also have your objective cards. So you get 2 decks basically, one that contains these ploys and the upgrades, and one that contains like these objective cards. And you can sort of discard them as an action during the turn, or if you at the end of the turn you can discard one of each, I think. So there's these cards can add a lot of strategy and tactics to the game, like significantly so. Like the objectives, as I said earlier on with my example, super important, right? So, and I'm not 100% sure what the sales model was, so don't worry if I get this wrong, like don't hate me. But basically you got card sets with the starter set, and then I think like each warband possibly came with its own extra cards and that kind of thing, which was fine. But you can then sort of like mix and match and create your own deck, which I think it's the creating your own deck bit that I really disliked. Now, they do apparently sell now actually like pre-built decks, or they give you a pre-built deck with whatever set you're buying, which I think is a fantastic addition. But I personally, and people might disagree with me, probably would have liked to have seen no deck building, because if you combine the idea of like a trading card or deck building game with Games Workshop sales models, my instinct was to be deliberately, like intentionally straight off put by that. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Now, I don't necessarily think it's too terrible, because the warbands have only like 3 or 4 models and they're only like 15 quid, but I never liked the idea of needing or wanting to buy some models for some rules. So I don't want to buy, like it happened in X-Wing version 1, you had to buy some ships you didn't need to play with some rules that you did, and I hated that as a concept, right? And I still stand by that, and I will forever stand by that, I think. So there's that. I was always worried about that. And I personally don't like deck building, right? Because all I'm going to do is go online and pick a good deck build and put it together. So I'm not really a huge fan of it, and I think, now, I can't say that everybody who wanted to play this game is like me, but I suspect a lot of people will have been put off by the deck building. If I am, then other people will have been, right? Even though that may not be the main reason, but I think the deck building is one element. I would have liked to have seen maybe just like standardized pre-built decks. So maybe you had like, maybe 10 decks, or maybe you just release with 3, and each faction can just pick whichever one they want. And maybe you have to tell your opponent which one you've got, but I just think that would be a bit better and a bit easier, and take away that sort of deck building element. I think literally the deck building element is the only downside to this game I can actually see, because yeah, the fact you need the board and you need the dice and stuff like that, that's all fine because it all comes in the starter sets. So yeah, I really think in many ways the deck building is the only thing that held it back. Now, I'm not saying you don't get into this game, but if the popularity is like relatively low for a Games Workshop game, I've got to say, like, I've never seen a tournament of it. I've not seen events of it, like Element Games or anything like that. And maybe there have been, and obviously in the COVID times, I've literally no idea if there's ever going to be. Well, not ever going to be, that sounds dramatic, but I don't know if there ever was. Or if there would have been during this time, I don't know. But it looks like, I think you need to have a group of people who are going to play this with you. It's sort of like a really competitive game, but without an audience, it doesn't really matter. There is a Discord to the Warhammer Underworlds online like match finder, so if you want to try and play that game, there might only be 60 people playing, but if you're one of them, you'll find somebody, as long as you like go on the Discord and match up and stuff like that. On the free weekend, I was having no problem finding players. I did actually play somebody who was in the chat as well. So yeah, I think it's hindered by that, and really I can't think what else would have caused this game not to have been a massive success. It sort of ticks all the right boxes for me, but I was instantly put off by the deck building element. Is there anything else that really hindered it? I don't know. I think if you've got a group a group a crew or a group of people who are going to play this game with you is superb. There's the new one which isn't Beastgrave. There's another one that's coming out season 4. I can definitely understand people getting into that. Obviously, they had the Magic Edition and all that kind of stuff. So I think like ultimately it's like a really solid, superb game, and they must still be having enough players like around the world, because Games Workshop would probably have not made anything for it. And I do think that the deck building and then Warcry sort of really would have like slowed down the Warhammer Underworlds vibe. So that's it. I mean, it's really underappreciated game in a sense, rather than underrated, because a lot of people like it. Anyway, this has gone up for pre-order and it's £105, and I think it's mental. But I'm not going to make a video about it. But yeah, like I'm sure it's a big boy, but geez, it's a guy on a, well, it's TechQuest to be fair, but and a spirit. I was going to say guy on a dragon, but it's the guy on the spirit. Either way, I find that completely insane. But I'm not making a video about it because it's just me slagging off a price that I don't really understand. Yeah, underappreciated game, and sadly, like I think the video game's in the same bucket. Like if there's not that many players, like can I tell you is it worth spending £15 on the game right now to be in a very small pool of players? I wouldn't want to say yes or no, but I don't think I'm buying it, sadly. By the way, I will probably be streaming Blood Bowl, hence why I was comparing it to Blood Bowl. Not because it's more popular, but because I actually want to. And I'll be doing that on Twitch and YouTube for a little while. Then I'll probably ditch YouTube. Anyway, that's it. That's the conversation. Let me know your thoughts. I can now say I finally played Warhammer Underworlds, and yes, I see what all the fuss was about. It's a great game. I really, really enjoyed my time. But yeah, unfortunately, I think I don't think it's sort of popular enough for me, and that sounds bad, but if I can't play the game, then I can't play the game. Have a beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.